Mr. Henare, thank you very much for attending today. You've had a letter from the committee. You've replied. We've asked, would you like to come and make any statements and to have any questions from the committee to you? So I'd appreciate it if you could perhaps start speaking to your letter and to what has happened.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, for this opportunity to present my case here to the Privileges Committee. Can I start by saying, when I started here in 2014, the words by Speaker Carter were very clear to me and to all the members who started in that intake, which was familiarise yourself with the McGee and the rules of the House. I've certainly made an effort in my time here in Parliament to do that. And in doing so, I am familiar with the rules of the House. So the first thing I say to the committee is, for breaking the rule of stepping away from my seat and onto the floor of the debating chamber, I apologise. I know the rule with respect to that, and I knew in doing so that I would be breaking that rule. The second thing I'll say is for the haka performed. The first thing is that I stand by my actions of performing the haka that day. And if I can offer some context, which is well known to the members of the committee, this, from my perspective, was one of the most divisive bills I've ever seen in my time of 11 years in Parliament. It was also a very heated debate in the House for members who were there that day. And I certainly was one who was interjecting strongly throughout the contributions of that bill on that particular day. Followed soon after was the haka. Just before the haka, my colleague and good friend, the Honourable Blue Jackson, had been ejected from the House. And so my passion towards seeing this bill defeated, I stand by wholeheartedly and perform the haka on the floor of the House. The second thing to that point I'll add is for the consideration of the committee and indeed all members of the House, that wasn't my first haka I've performed on the floor of the House. It's well known to members when treaty settlements have been considered in the House and upon the third reading and generally the first reading as well, the gallery are invited to sing. I have stepped out onto the floor during those occasions to perform both waiata and haka in my 11 years here in the House. So I leave those as context for the points that I wish to make in front of the committee here today, and just once again finish by saying I am aware of the rules, and to this committee and members of the House, I do sincerely apologise. And I'm open for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Tēnā koe, Peeni. Thank you for your contribution. Some have labelled the haka as designed to intimidate, but others have also noted that it's used in school prize giving and other events to show respect. What's your interpretation of the use of the haka and its potential place in Parliament in relationship to its intent?
The first thing I'll say to that is it's been well acknowledged by members across the House, as well as the highest constitutional position of the Governor-General in speeches on the throne, or from the throne, that Ngāti toa and te Atiawa a mana whenua here in Wellington. That particular haka is of Ngāti toa descent. And so the performance of that haka here in Parliament seems fitting, given the mana whenua status that Ngāti toa have in the district, in the Rohe, in the region here of Te Whanganui a Tara. Second to that is, I do appreciate the view that this House should represent the people. And at many occasions where we've all been at, happy, sad, other occasions where the haka is being performed, it's done with intent. It's done to both celebrate, celebrate and protest, but always done with the mana and respect that comes with doing the haka. And what I've known and in my experiences after the haka, despite how one might feel during the performance of that haka, generally we all come together and talk through, debate through, or discuss. what we need to discuss together to come together on a particular matter. That includes coming together for Hākari for a feast afterwards.
Thank you.
Yes, Harmjeet.
Yes, sir. And you said that you didn't think that members would be intimidated. Did you think about this before your actions?
I've never seen the haka as purely intimidatory. And what I mean by that is one could argue that this particular bill was designed to intimidate Māori or certain communities in New Zealand here. When I performed the haka, I've given the context in the House about how heated that debate was, how passionate that debate was, and how I stand by my point of performing the haka on the floor of the chamber.
So in your response to the committee, you said that that was spontaneous. So if it was spontaneous, how could you claim, how could you be sure that no members were intimidated?
Well, spontaneity is exactly that, spontaneity. I apologise if I couldn't do the round of the houses and the members in to inform them of a potential haka and whether or not, and with the intent of explaining to them that is not my intention to be inflammatory or to be intimidating in any way, shape or form. Spontaneity is exactly that. And my consideration in performing the haka took into consideration all of the context that I've already provided and that is well known to the members of this committee and the House as a whole. And I still maintain that the spontaneity of that haka was performed in direct opposition to this bill.
Ask Louise Upton. You have a question.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear, you've apologised for coming away from your seat, but not apologising for the haka. So in your study of Magee, which you quite proudly said at the start, where does the haka sit in Magee?
Where does haka sit, sorry?
In Magee.
In Magee. No, when I spoke about familiarising myself with the rules, I knew that impeding or impinging on the processes of the House, in particular on the chamber floor, which is what we're debating or discussing here at the moment, it doesn't say haka, but it does say impinging on the processes of the House. And I appreciate that that's one of the reasons why I've been summoned here from the Privileges Committee.
So do you,
Magee does not refer to the haka.
so do you recognise that coming away from your seat does take a step towards other members in their space?
And that's why I apologise for stepping onto the floor.
Marimena, you had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tēnā koe, Peeni. In your response letter, you referred to the not noticing straight away that the speaker had stood, because indeed he didn't stand straight away. I was there that day, I remember how it happened. And I'd appreciate you just acknowledging that here. So, and indeed, many of your colleagues took to their feet but did not leave. So they weren't intimidated themselves, but they were supporting your stand, it seems to me. And then going forward, now we know that in standing orders, there is a request for tikanga, because now that's come up as a, so with all of this, what does this mean? Is this tikanga? And what does tikanga mean now in the House? It used to mean something that had a, it seems to me anyway, for what I've picked up, a sort of Pākehā interpretation, which isn't always the best. But in this context now, moving forward into the next, 20, 30 years, what might it mean now? I'm interested, because standing orders now has been required to understand this and hopefully be helpful. How say you in that regard?
It's been well established, certainly in my time
Hasn't
here.
been changed at all.
No.
It hasn't been changed. No.
No, it hasn't been changed, but I'm interested too, because this comes out of an expression of tikanga, which is, when the House said yes to te reo Māori, tikanga was always going to follow. So I'm interested, Madam Chair, if I may, just to seek in this context on this day, what else was in play for you?
Was the strong memory of the Māori nation marching on Parliament and the expectation of the constituents that I represent to ensure that our language, our culture, and indeed our tikanga in this instance is represented and represented well. And I feel I did that. As I said, I stand by that.
Questions? I'll say Right Honourable Winston Peters, then I'll come to you, Ricardo, and come back to you, Jeet.
Can I say this case, your case before this committee, is separated, in my view, from other cases coming before it? But can I ask you a few questions? Is tikanga iwi by iwi the same?
The short answer is no.
Thanks. Now, you refer in your second paragraph, second sentence, one does not need, and one that needs no preparation or rehearsal. So I'm asking you, was it spontaneous?
It was spontaneous, and I've provided the context for that spontaneity and my actions in this instance.
Well, if it was spontaneous, then in your opening statement, you said that you knew you were breaking the rule.
With respect to the rule, as I've said, familiarised myself with the rules of this house from my first day, and I knew that stepping on the floor in any circumstance to impinge the procedures of the house is breaking that rule.
But not when you got up. But not when you got up and before you walked down, you didn't think.
That's part of my consideration for the
Yeah,
spontaneity.
I know. And look, you do accept that McGee's house rules and precedents set out that such a thing would require prior permission, of which we've seen examples countless times.
Yes, and I have seen those examples, in particular on treaty settlements. A question I'd put to the committee would be, in accepting that the gallery can perform, does that instantly suspend the rules on the floor of the house? My view is it doesn't do that. And I've heard the speaker stand and say, you now have permission to perform a waiata, not the rules of the house are suspended in order for you to perform a waiata.
Yeah, look, can you recall, because it's a bit hazy, but when you got to your feet, there was a number of other people on their feet too, weren't they?
Correct.
On your right. That's it, you're there, they're on their feet, the speaker's there.
Correct.
Yeah. So when you say the comment, no, don't do that, I mean, I don't think any of us heard that.
No, correct.
We thought we heard it, but we didn't know if we heard it clearly.
Correct. And I suspect, by virtue of having seen it so many times played over and over on social media and other platforms, I've heard it since. But on the day, I can't recall hearing it. And throughout the entire debate, my eyes were predominantly either forward or to my left, which is away from the speaker.
Can I just ask one last question? You're actually saying that this complaint, if it had a construct, it should not include you.
Look, I think there is a case to be made here for the way that tikanga does shape how this house performs. With respect to my dissension towards the bill and my opposition towards this bill, it shouldn't come as any surprise that I'd make a case, a strong one, to oppose it.
Well, look, I can understand that, but can I ask this? That's not the issue. The issue is what happened was someone got up from their seat, spontaneously, you say. It is impossible to do the haka where you were standing, so the front's the only place you can go to.
Correct.
You didn't go any further.
Correct.
That makes a distinction.
Correct. My action was to simply step out from my seat.
Yeah.
One step is all I took.
Thank you.
All right, Ricardo.
What message would you like to send the committee as we move forward with this process in relationship to how we interpret how tikanga and the haka more specifically is interpreted by other members?
A point of order.
Yes, point of
With the
order.
greatest respect, witness is not here for that purpose.
No, that's right. I think we might
Well,
be better to stick to the actual point?
Well, this is something that the member has mentioned previously, and in order for us to adequately deliberate it, it's important for me to understand what the member wants from us as well.
Can I speak to that point of order?
Yes, you can.
You're on this committee because you should understand before you got here what your job was, and if you didn't, somebody else from your party should be here. Back to the matter, the witness is for a specific purpose.
They were
You're
definitely
trying to
not-
widen it, and that, in my view, is ultra vires this committee's rules.
I'll leave it to the chair.
Yeah, so I'm ruling on this, that we are here to deal with this particular matter of privilege, not with the standing orders that there may or may not be at another time. It's very important we deal with this. So could you ask another question that's more in keeping with the actual reason that the member is here?
Yes, I've noted, and in your letter you've noted, that part of the language that was used was the fact that the haka was deemed intimidating. So as we move forward and consider those words that brought you here in the first place, what would you like us to reflect on in relationship to, for example, your actions, how you see those reflecting tikanga, and how you would like us to interpret that moving forward, specifically to your actions?
I'm of the belief that the haka itself is a part of this country in every single way. And those who know, I go to the gym every day here, and as I walk to the gym, I heard Speaker Brownlee speaking on a video to visitors who came here and said that our democracy in this institution is an unusual one, in that we might find our basis in Westminster, but we do things a uniquely New Zealand way. And that's where I think the haka sits.
Right. The next question I have is Parmjeet and then Scott.
Thank you. So you've said that Haka is performed all around the country during school prize giving. So was your intention behind your haka similar to that of a school prize giving? Because that is like celebration? Because you're denying it was intimidation.
It's not just school prize givings. It's done as an expression of the way one feels, the way one chooses to express themselves. And I'm reminded of the word roimata. And if anyone in the room here or on the committee chooses to look up the word roimata, you'll see that it says tia. Well, roimata actually means something far more than that. It can mean an expression of love, an expression of sadness, an expression of anger.
Scott, could you?
I thought it was submitted.
Yes.
So you think the haka is more like King's Playing Auckland Grammar?
That's exactly where I've seen it performed with just as much passion.
Right. Thank you.
Well, I'm an
for
Auckland
that.
grammar old boy.
Oh, there you go.
Well, be great.
How's that?
Why didn't you?
I want to pick up, if I might, Madam.
Well, we're not going to have any of that nasty stuff for Canterbury, thank you. Please keep
I
going.
wondered if I might, Madam Chair, just pick up on the line of questioning from the Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister has indicated that your actions were in some way separate and different from other members who had significantly advanced in close proximity to members who were seated in the chamber during the debate or during the taking of the vote. You've said in your letter that your action in participating in the haka was spontaneous, but I'm keen to know what it was that was in your mind that prevented you from joining the advanced party, so to speak, because you did not advance further.
Yeah.
So what was it that was in your mind that constrained you from doing that, and why?
A very good question, and thank you for the question. Just recently was the National Kapahaka competition, Te Matatini, of which I've been a participant and an MC. I've lived and breathed haka and waiata and Māori tradition and language all of my life. The haka taparahi that I've been taught with association with this particular haka requires you to stand in a haka-like stance, otherwise known as kiamo, if I may demonstrate, which is simply planting your 2 feet like this. It doesn't require you to walk, doesn't require you to jump. This particular haka, performed like this, is how I've been taught. And therefore I planted my feet and stayed there.
No one more question?
Yes.
Now that
okay.
you've raised the question of kapahaka, do you remember who it was that funded original commencement of
Oh,
kapahaka?
come on. If he's taking points aboard of irrelevance,
I think
No,
you
no,
might-
consistency would
I
be
think
nice.
you might find that right on Winston Peters is trying to be helpful. Maramina.
You got an answer?
Mr. Henare, tēnā koe. You started out in your opening statement with the describing that day and not an ordinary day. This is not an ordinary day. This is a day where this particular bill, which is designed to, all of the things that you talked about, the most divisive bill, that it seems to me quite an exceptional and extraordinary response. That is a very mighty response. That's what I think I'm hearing, and I'd be keen to hear more in that respect about that, and what was inside, not only in your mind, but in your tinana, about what that looks and feels like on the day, being the haka expert that you are. And then what it meant to have the rest of the whānau on the floor with you.
I've provided the context which you've touched on in your question. And I do believe that in my time here, which is only a minor 11 years dwarfed by many on this committee, I've never seen a bill like this. And in fact, I think of some of the more challenging bills in my time, bills such as the CPTPP and other challenging bills in this House. I've never seen anything like this before. And I will say that there's one thing more powerful than doing a haka on your own, is doing the haka alongside your people. And there is, without a shadow of a doubt, that I could feel the presence of the gallery doing the haka. I could feel the presence of my colleagues, certainly on our side of the House, doing the haka too, as well as the many I couldn't see, which I'm sure we're watching from home.
Just want to clarify this, because you have already apologized and you have said you understand the rules of the House. But on the other hand, in your response to this question, you have justified your actions. So which side should we look at?
I think we should look at both. The rule is very clear. Stepping on the floor, impinging the processes of the House or the procedures of the House is against the rules. For that, I apologise. But once again, I've already said I stand by my actions of spontaneity to perform a haka with the context given about the bill for which we did the haka against. And I continue to stand by that. And if I can draw from a thread of the questions that I've sensed here in my time in front of the committee, there are bigger questions and debates to be had about the rules and the way that we conduct ourselves, or this House conducts itself.
So in your letter, you said that you apologize if there was disrespect. So was there disrespect?
I certainly don't believe there was disrespect. And if I recall another instance where I've been challenged in a haka, and the Deputy Prime Minister will remember this pretty clearly, it was the issue in Ihumātao, and I was the minister sent in to speak with the whānau and the locals there. They certainly performed a rousing haka to me, not to intimidate me, but certainly to express themselves. And I continue to stand by my action here.
Can I ask you, did you see the Speaker rise to his feet?
No, I didn't. I mentioned for the entire debate, my eyes were either straight ahead or predominantly to the left, which is away from the Speaker who's seated to my right.
For the entire haka, debate, I mean haka.
Pamjit,
Very quick,
and then
sir.
Louise. And then
Because your
once-
apology is conditional. It says if there was disrespect, and now you're saying there was no disrespect.
Well, the rules.
Vicky has actually apologised
apologise
today
again now.
for stepping away from his seat and coming onto the floor. I made a note.
That's after
Yeah,
that,
correct.
we consider this.
Okay, and then Louise?
Thanks. I was just interested in, you made the point clearly before about the Speaker giving permission
Yes.
when there is a waiata from the gallery. So if you were facing away from the Speaker, you were clearly facing the gallery and the other members. Wouldn't it have been clear to you that permission hadn't been granted for the gallery to give a waiata or a haka at that point? So you were in an influential position when you knew permission had not been granted from the gallery. Did you not think that would lead to disorder or some challenge of the House and the House's proceedings?
Correct. I knew it would lead to that. As the member Kapakingi has pointed out, That's both the spontaneity and the context for which I performed the haka that I did.
Just quickly, can you recall a circumstance where it was allowed because it seemed to be appropriate at the time down in the chamber, so to speak? Are you aware of such a circumstance in the past?
Where the hakas,
Not a haka, but something, a song.
most definitely, and
Yeah.
I've already mentioned the treaty settlement bills, but there have been other significant occasions.
You are aware that when it comes to Hiamata, I wasn't there because I wasn't told it was happening.
No, correct.
Prime Minister kept it from me.
Correct. However,
Okay.
I was directed by the cabinet to attend.
Yes, I know. Third thing I want.
Slightly historical.
Well, no, it was not unfortunately correct. The third thing is, why would people get so hit up when they knew a piece of legislation was dead on the water?
Exactly.
No, is that relevant? That's just, why would people get up? There's nothing to
You
do.
can ask your own question.
Well, no, I'm taking the point of order.
Are you? All right. Well, then say
Well,
point of order, because
well,
I'm not a
okay.
mind reader, even if I do have other brilliant qualities, okay?
Can I-
Including patience.
Wait, this is what I know what to say, because he's mine a mile off. He put an issue the way he felt. I'm
He just
asking
say.
him to explain it, that's all.
We can ask a question about how he felt, but not about how everyone else felt. That's my point of
Well,
order.
I'm talking to him. I said,
Okay, can we just come down,
I
calmly?
didn't ask him to speak for everybody else, like some other party I know. I'm asking him to speak about
Okay,
how
Mr.
he
Henare,
got
off you go.
wound up when he knew it was dead on the water.
Very much in the same way that those who continue to submit in their throngs to the select committee about this matter, despite knowing the position of the Prime Minister's made clear. And it's with that same passion I will continue to stand and oppose this bill
Okay,
until
Well,
it is
just
dead.
one last thing. Have you seen the old Maori expression about the wolf travelling out to meet the boat?
Wolf coming out to meet the boat.
Yeah.
Sounds quite good.
Well, it's not leaving Congress.
He's too young.
Was Kupe on that boat? No, sorry.
Scott,
Another way expression.
Yes.
I just want to come back to, again, this matter of spontaneity and what was in your mind and why you didn't advance further and all that sort of thing. Because the context of what was happening in the House at the time, I think, is relevant and important. And what was happening at the time was the partial completion of a party vote process. So it wasn't the end of a debate. It wasn't the beginning of the debate. It wasn't the beginning of someone's speech or the conclusion of someone's speech. It wasn't the equivalent of a third reading. It was halfway through a formal process of the House, which of itself has its own rules, precedent and procedures. I'm interested about, again, your, forgive me, your state of mind at the time. Yeah, I mean, you're, as you say, a member of some experience, 11 years in this House. So you understand the process of a party vote and the solemnity of that process.
Yeah, correct. And I am aware of that particular process. The spontaneity of someone leading that haka and me joining that haka, I think answers your question. I've never seen an instance where Richie McCaw might lead the All Black haka and say, kia rite, and some people say, we're not quite ready. Kia mau, oh no, can we do that again? So in the leadership that was taken by a fellow member of the House to lead that haka, I felt it my duty to support.
so you were a follower of it?
I was a spontaneous kai haka.
Were you led
Follow.
astray?
Okay, all right.
Yes, that's
I think one of the things I'd ask you about, Mr. Henare, is I've seen a lot of emotional debates in Parliament. I wonder, have you thought that other people might feel just as passionately on other issues and they do not take to the floor of the House, and for which you have apologised, and they do not encroach upon anyone else's space? People naturally, this is a very challenging times for people during these debates, and they can be very, very emotional within parties as well, actually. I've seen these conscience votes. So I just wonder if you can think of any other time that people might want to do this and that would be acceptable, because I know you have already apologised for stepping away from your seat and coming onto the floor. But do you think there's other times that people might want to and should be able to?
Yeah, look, I've in my time here experienced some very tense debates in the House, but I can't recall a time where somebody's taken the action that I've taken.
do you feel, and right on, Winston Peters mentioned it, do you really feel that at that time when this vote was happening, so it's a voting process, not a debate, that that you were interfering with that vote in some way? And do you feel that when you think back to it, do you realise that that was considered by many people as being quite intimidatory, and during that voting process where even members cannot even shout out a little bit of an interjection, it's absolutely in dead silence? So do you realise how important that was?
Yes, and I accept that in stepping onto the floor and impinging on that process, I'm culpable.
Okay.
I've only got one other question.
Yes, of course you can.
It's about the time, because we don't keep time, then a whole lot of people's diaries and the staff diary goes right out the window. And what I'm saying is that you've been to the Maori Sports Awards and everything's right on clock until they get up and all do their way out on the full 100 yards, and all of a sudden you can see whatever plans you had for your taxi, you can add another hour and a half to that, and everything else that goes to haywire. If you're looking for the plane, you can forget that.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for consideration, not just what your thoughts are, but you can see how quickly, if that was to happen too many times, then the parliamentary schedule would be haywire.
No, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions, any members of the committee? Thank you. And Mr. Henare, did you want to make any other statements to us?
Only to thank
The Maori Sports Awards.
only to thank the committee for the time and consideration of my case.
And thank you, and I'd like to thank you for coming along today, and also for your apology for stepping away from your seat and coming onto the floor. And I'd also like to say thank you for the considered letter you sent us, although I don't think it's necessary to mention that a complaint might be near identical letter and things like that. We don't do that. We treat every complaint seriously and every letter. So thank you very much. We can clear the gallery. I feel like I really want to say that, clear that room.